This is Ross Feingold on the Taiwan Hashtag program, hosted by Storm Media and coming to you from Taipei, Taiwan. Today we're back to talking about a topic that we have discussed repeatedly ever since the summer, and that is the ongoing protests in Hong Kong and the relationship with Taiwan. The big news this week was Keith Fong, a student leader at Hong Kong Baptist University, publicly criticized Taiwan politicians, including President Tsai Ing-wen. What did he say on his Facebook post? He said Taiwan politicians are basically not doing enough to help people in Hong Kong. In fact, he accused politicians in Taiwan and the Democratic Progressive Party of Tsai Ing-wen, which of course she's trying to get reelected, and they're trying to keep their majority in the legislative yuan, Taiwan's parliament, in the upcoming elections on January 11th. Keith Fong accused them of using events in Hong Kong just to get votes, taking advantage of the misfortune of protesters in Hong Kong, months of violent protests, thousands have been arrested, taking advantage of them to win the upcoming Taiwan election. Keith Fong, no, what do you think they were going to do? Taiwan is a democracy. Politicians need to get elected. They will use whatever issue is possible to distinguish themselves from their opponents. The fact is, President Tsai and her government and DPP politicians have been very outspoken in their support of the protesters in Hong Kong. Han Kuo-yu, the candidate of the Kuomintang for president, the current mayor of Kaohsiung, was a little late to this party. In fact, he was criticized for visiting Hong Kong earlier this year and meeting with representatives of the central government, as well as Carrie Lam, the chief executive of Hong Kong. This was before the protests broke out, but he was still heavily criticized here in Taiwan because people said, well, it shows you're too close to China, you're too willing to make deals with China, and that's not what people in Taiwan want. After he became the presidential candidate, he's had to refine his message. He said Hong Kong does need democracy. He said one country, two systems doesn't work in Taiwan. Over my dead body, if I get elected, would we have one country, two systems arrangement with the People's Republic of China? So again, Han was a little slow on this, a little late, got roundly criticized. One among many reasons why his poll numbers are so dreadful and he's so far behind President Tsai in the ongoing polling for January 11th election. But Keith Fong, what did you expect? What kind of dream did you have for Taiwan politicians? What did you think they are going to do? Well, you did say you want them to pass an asylum law to grant asylum to people escaping from Hong Kong. We've discussed this on Taiwan Hashtag. There was a draft asylum refugee law sitting in Taiwan's legislative yuan for over 2 years. But this draft law did not include China, Hong Kong, and Macau. Why is that? Well, many laws here in Taiwan are written to exclude China, Hong Kong, and Macau. They are treated differently because of the unique nature of the relationship between Taiwan and China, as well as Hong Kong and Macau. So very typically, laws are written to exclude China, Hong Kong, and Macau. A separate law is written or within laws when referring to something that's international, cross-border, overseas. Hong Kong, China, Macau are typically distinguished. They're defined separately. The legal provisions will describe the treatment of China, Hong Kong, and Macau separately than it will from the broader overseas or international community that might be described in a law or regulation. So not a surprise that the draft refugee and asylum law did not include China, Hong Kong, and Macau. Of course, this draft was produced years ago. It was before the protests broke out. So yes, it would be, in theory, easy enough for legislators in Taiwan to draft a law that would apply specifically to people from China, Hong Kong, and Macau, define the terms of political asylum, and so what would be the basis for applying how long can they stay, which would be the agencies involved, things of that nature. And because it is involving China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, it does involve different agencies than it would be for refugees seeking asylum from other parts of the world, because Taiwan does have government agencies that deal specifically with China, Hong Kong, and Macau. It's called the Mainland Affairs Council. They still call it the mainland because, in theory, we're all part of the same country, China. Republic of China, People's Republic of China. So, Keith Fong, is your criticism justified? Well, partly yes. They have been trying to take advantage of the situation in Hong Kong to get votes, and it's been working for them. On the other hand, do you not want the support? Do you not want Taiwan's political leaders, the elected leaders, elected democratically? We should remind our audience, do you not want them to support you? Do you not want President Tsai to make so many statements on her Facebook and her Twitter in multiple languages expressing her support for the protesters in Taiwan? Well, of course, that's up to you and the other leaders of the leaderless protest movement in Hong Kong, but you'll have to balance that. So it's no surprise that Mr. Fong quickly starts to step back from his criticism. Well, I didn't really mean that. Well, that brings us to the next issue is recent days, international media reports that several hundred people from Hong Kong have quietly slipped into Taiwan. So they are seeking asylum. It would be very ad hoc because there's no defined legal basis, so very ad hoc by the government agencies involved on a case-by-case basis. But according to these media reports, over 200 people from Hong Kong who have been arrested in Hong Kong facing criminal charges have departed Hong Kong and have come here to Taiwan. In fact, the media reports described a whole network of people, including churches and religious leaders, individuals in Hong Kong donating money, lawyers in Taiwan who are volunteering their time and skills to assist. So this whole network, and people in Hong Kong are making a comparison to the network that existed in Hong Kong after the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989 to help Chinese dissidents slip out of China into Hong Kong, and then very often they moved on to other locations, including Taiwan, as well as the United States, Europe, Canada, and other places around the world. So yes, it's an analogous situation. However, an important thing to keep in mind is, according to the media reports, some of these people literally did slip into Taiwan. They even took a boat here. So they entered Taiwan illegally. So they've broken Taiwan's immigration laws. Instead of taking an airplane, getting their passport stamped or showing their visa on arrival at the airport for the immigration officer to review, they took a boat. You know, when I was younger, there used to be a phrase, a slow boat to China. This was the slow boat to Taiwan. So we have some of these people who've been arrested facing criminal charges. It could be criminal charges for weapons possession, participating in an unauthorized rally, because many of the people arrested in Hong Kong over the last 6 months have been arrested for attending events and participating in large events that did not have what they call a no objection letter from the Hong Kong police. So it's an unauthorized, technically illegal rally. It's a pretty easy criminal charge for the police to put on against somebody that they've arrested. Of course, most of the media attention tends to be about rioting and are people charged with rioting, which is a very serious criminal charge, but the majority of people who have been arrested so far in Hong Kong have not been charged with rioting. They've been charged with other offenses such as not producing their ID, attending an unauthorized public event, carrying laser pointers and things like that. So some of these people are facing criminal charges. They get bail. So they go in front of a judge in Hong Kong. Judge says, you've been charged with the following offense. We're going to schedule a trial for a few months from now. And typically the defendant's lawyer will say, we'd like bail. And in most cases, the people who've been arrested in Hong Kong over the last 6 months do get bail. So some of them have come here to Taiwan. This is going to be a very complex problem for Taiwan's government agencies. Because on the one hand, as we discussed, there is no asylum law. So there's no really clear parameters under which these persons can stay. On the other hand, we now see student leaders in Hong Kong, like young Mr. Fong, criticizing President Tsai and other political leaders in Taiwan for using them. So that means the political leadership of Taiwan was probably going to have to find a way to let some of these people remain in Taiwan on a case-by-case basis. So basically, these are people who are on the run from the law. They are facing charges. In some cases, they've actually snuck into Taiwan, so they violated Taiwan law as well. But again, there might be political pressure on Taiwan's political leaders, after the election, of course, to find a way to let some of these people stay in Taiwan. Well, do we want this number to grow? Well, that brings us to another item related to Hong Kong that was in the news this week. A number of NGOs held a press conference where their leaders proposed an interesting concept. Let's set up a special zone for people fleeing Hong Kong. Special zone here in Taiwan. We'll call it the Hong Kong zone, the Hong Kong Special Economic Zone. Well, that's pretty interesting because a lot of politicians and NGOs in Taiwan, they previously opposed proposals by the former President Wen-je to have special economic zones in Taiwan. They thought it would lead to a lot of Chinese investment or jobs flowing out of the special economic zones over to China, things like that. They thought it was very scary. Too much free trade with China, so they were against that. But now they're proposing some kind of special economic zone. So we're going to have a little Hong Kong town, I guess, under their concept. You know, the more important thing is probably to find a way to let people make genuine asylum claims if they do have a genuine fear of political persecution. Is a special zone a solution to that? Not really, in my opinion. Over the past few months of all these statements from Taiwan politicians and government agencies about all the things Taiwan wants to do, which is mostly moral support, people actually looked at the laws and the regulations, and there was almost 20 methods for Hong Kong people to live in Taiwan. The easiest one would be to get a working visa. So get employed here. Just get a job like other foreigners do, foreigners such as myself, who according to applicable regulations, can apply for a job. There is study, get a spot in a university. Marriage, of course, would be another option. The marriage would need to be legitimate, obviously. Investment visas, which might be out of the financial capability of younger people, but the dollar amount is relatively small. It's only 200,000 US dollars, and a Hong Kong person making that investment can then get residency, which within a few years could actually lead to Republic of China citizenship. So there are various channels to allow people from Hong Kong to come to Taiwan. I don't think we need a special zone for Hong Kong people. Maybe asylum law is something that legislators should look at after the upcoming election. But setting up a special zone, ironically, that sounds a lot like a special administrative region, which Hong Kong is of the People's Republic of China. I don't think we need the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the Republic of China on Taiwan. I'm Ross Feingold, and you've been watching Taiwan Hashtag on Storm Media.